Okay, guys, this is video 2. We're going to go ahead and do the I do portion of our lesson where I'm modeling for you. The first text is called Tara and the Sun. Okay, so it says, for many years the clan had faced hardship after hardship. The rivers had dried up and once plentiful herds had moved away. Worst of all, the air had become much colder. The people feared they would freeze to death, alone amidst a cold and ruined earth. Tara could bear to see her people suffer no longer, so she braved the dangers of the mountain. After many days of climbing, she reached the top and called forth the sun. Okay, so let's stop for just a second. Let's think about what we've read so far. So far, based on the title of the text and what I've read so far, I think Tara is my main character. So we know that if we are looking for the theme of a text, the lesson learned is probably going to be shown through Tara's actions. Okay? All right, so it says she calls forth the sun. Now, can a person call forth the sun and say, sun, come here to me? No, a human can't do that. So I think I've also determined the type of text that this is, and I think it's a myth. Okay, it's explaining how something came to be, where people have these interactions with nature as if nature's people, almost. Okay, she says, should my people die, she told the sun angrily, you shall have no one to shine upon. No one will be left to care about you, and you'll fade away, friendless and alone. The sun mulled over this and arrived at a decision. Okay, so that also tells me this is a myth. Can the sun make a decision? No. Very well, he answered. Here, take this small piece of me. Tara returned to the clan with the piece of sun. Slowly the air warmed, the herds returned, and the rivers began to flow once again. Okay, so that's it on our first text. So what does Tara do in this text? We know that she saves her people, okay, by getting a piece of the sun. How does she convince the sun to give her a piece? Well, she kind of opens his eyes to, if you don't come up and shine, now, like I'm telling you to, then no one's going to shine. You won't have anybody to shine on because everybody will die. And nobody will care about you. So she makes the sun feel bad. And it's kind of selfish even of the sun. The reason why he's doing it, right, is because he wants somebody to love him too. And instead of just doing it because it was the right thing to do. Okay? All right, let's look at our second text. This one's the opposite of the sun. It's called the lonely moon. Okay? It says, long ago, a young boy noticed a glowing white stone and picked it up. The moment his fingers touched the stone, the boy could hear Moon speaking to him. Okay, so I've determined that this is also a myth. Okay, and the boy is my main character. All right, so it says, I'm terribly lonely, said Moon. I offer this part of myself to you. With it, we may talk. The boy and Moon became good friends, and they shared many secrets. As time passed, however, the earth grew cold, and soon all was frozen. Moon realized that he had caused the problem. The moonstone was harming the world. Sorrowfully, Moon lowered himself to earth, gathered back the piece of himself, and returned to his lonely existence in the heavens. And in due time, the earth warmed once more. Okay, so did you see any events that were similar between the two texts? Okay, I saw that the earth, it says, as time passed, the earth grew cold and soon all was frozen. Okay, that's very similar to our first story. Now, I do want you to look at this one. Moon realized he had caused the problem. And sorrowfully he lowered himself to earth, gathered the piece of him, and returned to his existence in heaven. Okay, and then the earth warmed once more. So that's also similar. Okay, so are the sun and the moon the same? Okay, well, let's see what our anchor chart is asking us to write about, and then we might can determine our answer. So it says, what have you learned about the patterns of events in the stories? Oh, let's see. I think there we go. Sorry, I had the wrong page up. Let me go ahead and delete that one, because we do not need that one. Go ahead and delete that. Okay. All right, question 1 says, in Tara and the Sun, Tara is on a quest. Okay, so she's got something that she's determined to do. Identify story details that show the pattern of events of a quest. Then summarize Tara's quest. Use a chart to help you compare and contrast the events in each story, and then you can look for patterns of events. Okay, so if we were to go back to the story of Tara, okay, let's go back and let's look and see if we can find those story details that show a pattern of events of a quest. So we know a quest is kind of the same thing as a journey. Okay, all right, so let's go back. Okay, what's the first thing that happens in Tara's journey? Okay, so the first thing that I see is it says that Tara could bear to see her people suffer, so she braved the dangers of the mountain. Okay, after many days of climbing, that's probably like the middle of my story, she reaches the top and calls for the sun. Then she talks him into shining upon the people. Okay, he lets her take a small piece of her. She takes it back to her people, and the rivers begin to flow again. So on a quest, you definitely need to know the purpose of the quest. Okay, so let's start at the beginning by saying the people are suffering. Okay, all right, so let's look at the next thing that happens. She starts on her journey climbing the mountain. She's going to save her people. That's the quest, the beginning of the quest. All right, what happens next? She meets the sun and pleads her case. Okay, then what happens? Okay, after she pleads her case, she meets the sun, pleads her case. You should be thinking in your mind. The sun gives her a peace. Okay, the sun gives up a peace, and then the ultimate change of the quest, or the result of the quest, is that the people are saved, right? That's the goal of the quest, is to save the people. Okay, all right, so we would turn this, if we were going to summarize this quest, we would turn this into complete sentences. Okay, look at question number 2. It says, what are some ways that the lonely moon is different from Tara's story? Describe 3 or more of these differences. Okay, so it's asking me to find 3 differences. Well, I tell you what, let's go back. I think we have a better way of organizing our thoughts. Some of you are probably already yelling at the screen saying, Venn diagram, Venn diagram. Okay, now I don't have to worry about the middle because it's asking for differences. Okay, so I got to find 3 things that were different. That means that in Tara's story about the sun and lonely moon, you always want to put the title of your text at the top so that you know which one is which. What's something that happens in Tara's sun, that story about the sun, that doesn't happen in the moon? Well, the first difference is that Tara is on a quest, isn't she? There is a big problem at the beginning of the story. She's on a quest. Now, the boy in the text, Lonely Moon, he is not really on a journey or on a quest, is he? Okay, he just happens to find a rock, okay, or a piece of the moon. Okay, now let's find our second difference. Okay, in the first text, do we know a lot about Tara's personality? We really see her character, right? That she is very, I'm thinking in my mind, determined. Okay, let's go back to the text about the young boy. Do we find anything about, It does say the boy and the moon became good friends and they shared many secrets. As time passed, it grew cold. He moved himself back up to the heavens. So, do we really find out anything about the boy, personality wise? Can you think of anything? Might say something like they're good friends. That maybe his character trait is like loyal. We might say that because it did say that they shared many secrets together. So we might could say loyalty was his strong suit. Okay, but they were a little bit different. She is determined, maybe he is loyal. We definitely see more about her personality in the first text than the second text. Okay, let's see if we can determine one more difference. Okay, so the difference that I'm thinking of in my mind is that in the first story about the sun is already in the heavens. Okay, we'll put sky. And in the third story, the plot is just a little bit different. The sun is in the sky already and is giving a piece of himself to Earth. In the second story, the moon has already given a piece. Okay, so that's a little bit different. He gave a piece of himself to Earth. But caused problems. Okay, so that's leading me kind of to a fourth thing, is that in the first text, the sun saved the people. And in the last text, the moon saved the people by going back, by giving a piece of himself back instead of giving himself a piece of the people, to the people. Okay, so there were lots of differences between the two stories, but a lot of the events were very similar. And when you read them, you said, this is kind of like the first story that we read. Okay, let's look at question number 3. The characters in both stories get a piece of a heavenly body. Compare what happens when Tara gets a piece of the sun with what happens when the boy gets a piece of the moon. Okay? All right? So we've got the story of Tara and we've got the story of the boy. We know Tara gets a piece of the sun, boy gets a piece of the moon. Okay? What happens when Tara gets a piece of the sun? She takes it to the people. And if we go back to our text, it says, slowly the air warmed, the herds returned, and the rivers began to flow again. Okay? So what happens when she takes it to the people is it saves life there. Okay? Now, the moon is a little different. Okay, when the boy gets a piece of the moon, let's go back and see what happens. That happens at the beginning. Long ago, a young boy noticed a glowing white stone and picked it up. The moment his fingers touched the stone, the boy could hear the moon speaking to him. Okay, so what happens here? The moon speaks to him, and they become friends. Okay. All right. So I've answered that question. I would turn that into complete sentences. All right. Let's look at this and ask ourselves our do what question. Okay. All right. If this were a writing prompt, I'm trying to figure out what type of writing it is. Okay. It says describe. So that's my first verb, is that I need to describe something. Okay. So I'm already leaning toward informational. Describe what? The similarities and differences. Okay. Include details. Oh, there's another verb. Include. Include what? Details from both stories. And then use the space provided. Okay. So what is it that I'm supposed to write about? I know it's informational. I'm taking on the role of teacher. So my voice should be like a teacher's. And I'm teaching you the similarities and differences in the events. So could I go back and use something from this chart? Sure. Could I go back and use something from this chart? Sure. We've done a lot of the brain work ahead of time. Okay, so do we have any questions? This is the point where I would stop. If you have questions, you can send me a message, okay? All right, I'm going to stop the video, and then you'll watch video number 3.